Oh, hi there, YouTube viewer. Thank you so much for joining us. We're kind of on time tonight. On time and on the money with some top thoughts on a big, big day at Euro 2024. Got Tom Williams, Mark Carey here, and very shortly we're going to start recording a podcast with them. If we're all ready. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Hang on a second. Let me just take all of that and move it to the bottom. Dum, 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 dum. Good quiz questions in today's show. Lots of interesting, quirky facts.
As ever, James. As ever.
Yeah. All right, then. Let's do it. So the intro, blah, 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 totally at the Euros, bosh. Well, there we go then. Sunday the 30th of June. You're totally at the Euros, coming to you today with the sweet sounds of Mark Carey. Hello, Mark.
Good evening, James.
Good evening to you. And also here in the studio, nevermore Welshman, Tom Williams.
Hello, James.
Good evening to you, Tom.
Good evening.
We're also going to be hearing from Daniel Story. He was at the England game. Woof. And ahead of that big Belgium-France clash, Christophe Terreur on Belgium, a nation that's failed to live up to its enormous player potential in this tournament and couldn't beat Slovakia in 90 minutes either. So it'll be interesting to hear what that feels like. Anyway, what a day, Mark.
What a day. Yeah, it was very, very bad for England for 92-ish minutes. And then it was very, very good for a brief few seconds. And then it was kind of average. And then we treated to a really good game in the evening as well by a team who actually are coherent and know how to play together as a team, which I'm sure we'll come on to. So plenty to unpack.
Indeed. So the results in Gelsenkirchen, England were seconds away from crashing out of the Euros against Slovakia, but ended up 2-1 winners after extra time. Goals from Bellingham and Kane, as you undoubtedly know. In Köln, in the evening game, Spain actually conceded the first goal against Georgia. It was this summer's danger man own goal, but they eventually ran out 4-1 winners, thanks to Rodri and Fabian Ruiz and Nico Williams, and then Dani Olmo. In the quarterfinals, England will be playing Switzerland. Spain will be up against Germany. All right, our England talk starts now. Okay, and what commentary are you playing in? I've got really annoying hair that's just tickling my nose here.
Either the Bellingham
Bit of
equaliser
bonus
or the
content
Kane
there for the
goal.
YouTubers.
So what was...
Either the Bellingham equaliser or the Kane goal. The Bellingham equaliser slightly better commentary-wise.
Get it?
Yeah, I did. I nailed it.
Stick it on eBay, James.
Yeah.
Fetch a fortune. Maybe I'll stick it on eBay.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole new... Yeah, okay. Sorry, what did you say, Charlie? I was...
The Bellingham equaliser, maybe?
Yeah, it's got to be.
Yeah. Bellingham equaliser, yeah. Oh, dear. Woo! Another day at the office for Gareth Southgate and the boys. Slovakia, the underdogs, take the lead. Nearly out of second early in the second half. England, then, who take until the 95th minute to have an actual shot on target, with mere seconds left in the game. Take it to extra time through Jude Bellingham. A goal straight from a Hollywood script. And then no sooner had extra time started than Harry Kane makes it 2-1. Naturally, having taken the lead, England then sit back, allowing the shattered Slovakia to probe and press again. But doesn't matter. England go through to the quarter-finals. We'll get the thoughts of Tom and Mark very shortly. But right now, let's get an on-the-whistle verdict from Daniel Story there in Gelsenkirchen. Daniel Story, what was that like to witness firsthand?
It was a game that seemed to set up everything to make you look stupid. So, for example, it was one of the worst England performances I can remember and had one of the greatest moments I can remember in Jude Bellingham's overhead kick. It was England putting an interminable number of floaty crosses into the box and then scoring from two crosses. It was Gareth Southgate refusing to make substitutes and then somehow us then having more substitutes in extra time. So having legs to win the game and the substitutes making a difference. It was Kane and Bellingham surely have to come off and they both score. It was bizarre and wonderful and awful at the same time.
Good Lord. You wrote the official history of the England team. Where would you put Bellingham's goal in there?
I mean, for the combination of technique under pressure and for occasion, it is certainly right up there. It was still a last 16 game, and it's, we should say that it's a shame that it was needed at that time against a second tier opponent. But in those moments, England legends have always been made, and to produce something that sublime when I thought he was probably England's worst performer for most of the 90 minutes, and has been for the last 2 games as well. But to produce that at that moment was astonishing. And yeah, it seems silly to say, but at that moment, despite England being wretched, you thought, well, if we can still produce moments like that, then we really do have a chance at tournaments.
If that was Platt against Belgium, could this 2-1 overtime, extra time win turn out to be a Cameroon-like spark? I'm working the 1990 angles here.
Yeah, well, so eventual heroic dismal defeat on penalties in the semi-final. Yeah, I look forward to it. There is still a heck of a lot of work to do with this team. We've been told repeatedly that it will click, it will come together, and it will get better. But there are systemic issues in terms of building the ball out from the back. England are caught between 2 extremes of either playing really slowly or Jordan Pickford knocking it long to noted big men Phil Foden and Bukayo Saka. And the midfield balance is still not right. We're unable to get Bellingham on the ball enough. That doesn't matter now for 4 or 5 days. It will matter when they play Switzerland, because their performance against Italy was one of the best I've seen in the tournament, and they are a step up for England. It's not as easy as saying, well, England will grow in the tournament, because I think it would have clicked by now if it was going to. But while the pulse is there, you still have a chance, and that's certainly how it felt at the end of 120 minutes. You kind of 15 minutes after full time, you had England fans sat in pockets in the stand, just sort of staring on at the pitch, wondering what they just witnessed. And this is why you go through the dismal group games. This is why you buy your tickets and come back over to come to Gelsenkirchen and fight through tram systems and rail networks just to get here, because that Bellingham moment was genuinely magical.
Rather hoarse Daniel's story. We've been through a lot, as had all the England fans in that stadium. 2 good minutes, 2 goals from their only 2 shots on target. Strike up the great escape, Mark.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's somewhat prolonging the agony of them getting through to the next round. Obviously, we can preview the Switzerland game in the days that come. But yeah, I mean, they were about to be embarrassed, weren't they, in terms of crashing out? And it wasn't as though they were in any way unlucky to be 1-0 down. It was the same patterns that had happened across all the group games as well, of just having, as Daniel said, the really slow, laboured possession. The build-up was just really slow. And I think that Kobbie Mainoo coming in was refreshing to have him as someone who was comfortable receiving the ball inside the defensive block, which I thought was interesting. That's why he came in. England didn't find him, which was the frustrating thing. They didn't find him enough to be able to then be on the half turn and punch England, or punch the ball forward. So it was just so slow, so laboured. They'd come back, start again, and they would rarely, as Daniel said, get the ball into advanced areas quickly. And Slovakia were able to just be in a structured block, and they were rarely troubled. It was just resorting to those deep crosses, which again, frustratingly, was how they scored both goals, albeit the second one from a set piece. So yeah, well, both from set pieces, I suppose. But yeah, it was a get out of jail free card from just an absolute moment of brilliance.
But
from
what a
Jude
moment
Bellingham.
of brilliance! What a time to find a get out of jail card. What?
I mean, I wrote in the briefing on The Athletic that it was a moment of innovation, and it was born out of necessity, wasn't it? Because he just had to do something. I thought, if we were to maybe think of it tactically, I thought Ivan Toney did well as well to pin the defender, and the substitute did actually work. Although at the time you're thinking for 90 seconds for a forward to come on, this is just ludicrous. But
and he also had a hand
well
in Kane's goal as well.
Exactly, yeah. So he did have a big impact, and then he was holding the ball up well when England needed to sort of have a bit of an outball. But it was a fantastic throw from Kyle Walker, brilliant flick on from Mark Guehi, and an unbelievable overhead kick from Jude Bellingham. So you'd like to say it's straight off the training ground, but I think it was just a complete moment of creative innovation, and it led to England coming back.
Yeah, winning like this, Tom. Do you think it could be a catalyst?
I mean, it could be. I mean, the comparison that was being made on social media towards the latter stage of the second half was with the Iceland game in 2016. I think in many ways this was even worse in terms of quality, because on paper, this England team are significantly better and coming off the back of a period of very high achievement relative to England's history in recent years. 2016, they'd been knocked out of the World Cup in the group phase at the 2014 World Cup. Hang on, let me say that again. In 2016, they had gone out at the group phase at the previous World Cup in 2014. They've been pretty poor in the group phase, but they still managed 5 shots on target against Iceland, which is not much, and we didn't think it was much at the time. But that was 5 more shots on target within 90 minutes than they managed against Slovakia, and it is remarkable that Jude Bellingham could have conjured such a memorable moment from the absolute dross that had come before it. But I mean, as Roy Keane said after the game, as a supporter, sometimes the wins that you enjoy the most are when your team plays the worst. You think, I mean, the first game that came to mind for me was the 1999 Champions League final, which in many ways is the greatest game in Manchester United's history, but was perhaps their worst performance of the entire season. But all their fans remember is the finale. It will take some time for England fans and everyone connected with England to forget quite how bad they were in this game today. But they're still in the competition, and I mean, I'm conscious that I said this after the group phase, but Southgate surely now must realise that this system that he's persisting with doesn't work, and so that he will now have to change something.
He took off Phil Foden, and England immediately scored 2 goals in 2 minutes. Is that the change that I'm slightly reaching there? But what is the change that he should make, and what do you think he will make?
He has to change the personnel in the forward line, and I would have thought, given the profiles in the squad, the easiest player to replace is Phil Foden, because you have very obvious alternatives on the left-hand side of the attack. I mean, you could have made the argument that you move Foden to number 10 and take Jude Bellingham out. But now that Bellingham has produced another magic moment for England, it becomes much more difficult to do that. So for me, I think Foden is probably the most expendable player. I can't imagine Southgate drastically rethinking the system. I mean, we saw some really peculiar tactics from England. I mean, going into, I made a note of it here, they went into extra time with Saka and Eze as wing-backs, a midfield 3 of Cole Palmer, Declan Rice and Jude Bellingham, Harry Kane and Ivan Toney up front, which was brilliant to watch. I mean, that is very kind of untypical for Southgate. I can't imagine that he will go back to the drawing board completely, although the fact that Switzerland played with 3 at the back and wing-backs, maybe there is an argument for trying to counter that in some way.
Well, Southgate did that against Germany in the last Euros, where he said that he needed to match them up from a system where... I mean, I'm not going to defend Gareth Southgate per se, because I do think changes are needed. What I would say about the Foden thing is that there were occasions where he was running in behind, which I think was the stick that was used to beat him with as someone who likes to come towards the ball. I think the fact that it is Kieran Trippier as a right-footed, left-sided player, and England don't necessarily, well, other than Luke Shaw, don't have that left-footed left-back who's able to play. I think that's just more born out of necessity that he has to do that, because there were occasions where he was running in behind, stretching the defence, but the ball wasn't coming to him because it had to come onto Kieran Trippier's right foot, and then he played it, and by that point it was too late. So I don't know whether, if you did have a left-footed left-back, a fit Luke Shaw, that would probably go a long way to actually solving the problems, not necessarily Phil Foden alone, because I do think he can be a threat running in behind and going the other way, then crossing it first time for someone to get to the back post or into the 6-yard box. So I think it's a knock-on effect from having Kieran Trippier, I think, that then affects everything else going forward.
And that speaks to what is, to my mind, the biggest problem that England have. And we look at all the fantastic players they've got, particularly in attacking areas, all coming off fantastic seasons, and the question that keeps being asked is, why aren't they doing what they do with their clubs? And it's because none of them have what they have with their clubs when they play for England. You know, Foden plays in a team, Manchester City, where every single player knows exactly where he is supposed to be on the pitch in relation to the ball and his teammates at any given time. Harry Kane at Bayern Munich is surrounded by fast runners darting into space behind him, which he doesn't have with England. Bukayo Saka has that understanding on the right flank with Arsenal, with Ben White and Martin Odegaard, who know what he's going to do before he even knows what he's going to do. Jude Bellingham has an entire team at Real Madrid set up to get the best out of him. 3 central midfielders behind him and 2 runners ahead of him in Vinicius Jr. and Rodrigo heading into the box. And England have none of those
So
things.
you can do the whole 11. Go on.
No. That's it. That's all I've got. But no, but I mean, that's the issue. Like the rest of the, I mean, obviously, you know, there are personnel issues because of absentees, but it's the attacking players that gave England fans the optimism pre-tournament, and it's the fact that they're not doing what people expected of them that is, you know, that ends up producing performances like the one that we got today.
I think it's a very fair point and very, very well explained. I would think that probably most national teams have similar issues with the fact that you've got players who are used to well-organised footballing mechanisms in their club structure are suddenly thrown together. I mean, in some cases with teams from different leagues. I think I can't remember the example yesterday of a manager who was trying to put together. I think it might actually have been Slovakia that they have players in 11 different countries. So tremendous amount of disparate footballing influences.
But I mean, the issue, and it's a very classic England issue, it's we're putting all our best players in the team. Why isn't it working? We're back in this sort of Lampard-Gerrard debate.
Right.
Like, sometimes you have to take out some of your best players to find a system that works. And that's probably, I think, what Southgate has got wrong in this tournament. He has persisted with this 11 that gets all of his best players on the pitch at the same time, largely in the kind of positions they play in for their clubs. Phil Foden perhaps a little bit less. And it hasn't worked at all.
Right.
He's stuck with it, and it hasn't worked again against Slovakia. So now he will have to change it. You would think.
No, he won't. He'll do.
I hope he doesn't change it.
Against
I hope he does. I hope he picks the exact same. I mean, he's going to have to change Mark Gahey because he's a sender. I hope he picks the exact same team, because the rage on Twitter during the game today was something else.
We should speak a little bit about Slovenia. How tough. Slovakia. We should speak a little bit about Slovakia. How tough on them. Seconds away from the biggest result in their history, and shipping 2 goals from 2 shots on target.
Yeah, credit to them. I think they overall did play well, and it was made slightly easier for them because of England's performance, and I know we've covered that, but no, I thought they did very well, and they've been a good side. I think that they've been, you know, across the tournament, sort of maybe underestimated for how good they are on the ball. I've waxed lyrical before about Stanislav Lobotka, and I know that everyone knows him, a very experienced player who plays in Europe, but you know, they are a really good possession-based side, or they can knock the ball around maybe more than people give them credit for.
They've actually gone ahead in all their matches at the Euros, but only held on to the lead once, crucially, and that cost them today. Although, as I mentioned before, they could have had a second with that extraordinary moment when David Strelic almost scored from the halfway line after Kyle Walker had thought he was passing to John Stones, but John Stones didn't get the memo.
Yeah, I mean, the game was just full of these little vignettes of what wasn't working for England, and the half-time break was a chance to sort of, you know, gather the breath and go again, and then 10 minutes in, Kyle Walker knocks an innocuous square free kick to John Stones, who isn't even looking at what's happening, and I mean, if that had gone in, that would have been, I mean,
indeed,
epic.
I wonder about the manager, Calzona, because, you know, if Italy are going to be looking for a new boss soon, his former mentor, Spalletti, he's done a remarkable job with Slovakia. Anyway, England goes through to the quarterfinals with Switzerland. Will have ample chance, as you were saying, Mark, to preview that match in the days to come. Next up, then, let's get on to Sunday's other match, and that was the remarkable Spain-Georgia in Cologne. What comms are you going with here, Charlie?
Either Williams or Olmo. Williams was the third goal.
Okay. I mean, they'll just lots of beep, 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 beep. They have Morse code on the national ones as well, don't they? Yeah, they do. Yep. And it spells goal, doesn't it? That's what it is. Yep. Yep.
Is that what they do?
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
Didn't know it spelled
That's goal. Goal in Morse code. Yeah. We heard that a lot on Sunday evening. Well, you did if you were listening to Spanish radio comms. As Spain came from a goal behind to plucky Georgia to win 4-1. Spain were absolutely terrific at times. The opening goal was pretty special as well. A lightning Georgia counter-attack, finished off by Spain's very own Robin Normand, who I'm not sure what he's trying to do, chest it down, control it, and put it into his own net.
Yeah, well, the cross comes in from Ota Kakabadze, who's the Georgia right wing back, and it's quite an awkward cross to defend, and then it kind of bounces on the corner of the 6-yard box and arrives at Lenormand at kind of waist height. But it's hard to tell what he kind of thrusts his groin at it.
The lovely thing about the slow-mo is you can see his...
The facial expression is tremendous. And it flicks off his left hip and goes in. And as it transpired, that was as good as it got for Georgia. But it really made the game because it created sudden suspense. And again, Georgia, who've had all these incredible moments in this tournament, who've been one of the most exciting, one of the most fun teams to watch, gave us another totally unexpected moment, and it did, put the onus on Spain to they were already in control of the game, but obviously they had to try and come back into it, and as it turned out, they were level by half time, and it wasn't long before they were in front. But yeah, Georgia going out in fairly kind of valorous fashion, I think, because when they shipped 7 goals the last time they played Spain, and there's no shame in letting in 4 goals to this Spain team, given how good they are.
Indeed not. Rodri with the equaliser. Then Fabian Ruiz, who is now the joint most productive player at the Euros, 2 goals and 2 assists. Then Nico Williams. Then Dani Olmo with that magnificent first touch, that shift across.
Yeah, really good technical player, Dani Olmo. I think because of the glut of talent that Spain have in other national sides, he would probably be a starter. But Nico Williams and Lamine Yamal, you have to talk about them in every game because they are just such a threat from either side. And Nico Williams is so much more of a direct runner, and Lamine Yamal is a runner and a very good one at that. But he's so creative as well, and I think that his pass or his assist for Fabian Ruiz's goal was just an archetypal Lamine Yamal creative cross where he'll come inside onto a stronger left foot and just play a really wicked cross is probably the only way I can sort of describe it. And it was very similar to the Dani Carvajal goal against Croatia from the really strong cross from Yamal. And he can go either side. He can either go towards the byline onto sort of more into his right foot, or he can cut inside and come into that right half space. So much has already been spoken about him, of him being so good at such a young age, but a really good end product, which I think is I'm sure we'll come on to maybe France and the end product on the right side in Ousmane Dembele, but at such a young age, he really got that end product. Fabian
Ruiz then set up the Nico Williams one with a lovely ball that was trapped beautifully by...
lovely goal. He sort of drives Giorgio Kvaratskhelia, who's the sort of the right-sided Georgian centre-back, and then beats him in a way that, for me, brought to mind peak Ronaldinho. That thing where you kind of, tiptoe towards a player and everything in your body language suggests you're going to cut inside onto your stronger right foot, and just at the moment the defender's off balance, he nudges it to the left side with his right foot, runs in, and then sticks it into the back of the net. And I think again we saw this this new Spain. Yes, they completely monopolised possession, but with the twin threats of Williams and Yamal on both flanks, and with Pedri taking up those higher positions, there's much more kind of oomph to Spain than there has been in recent years, and I think it's what makes them so dangerous.
How dominant were they?
Well, I have a statistic to back up just how dominant they were. So they had, you can look at their field tilt, which is the share of touches in each side's respective attacking thirds, and they had a 93% field tilt, which was the highest share of any game in the tournament so far.
They also had 15 more shots than Georgia in the first half, which is the joint biggest differential in Euros history, Tom.
And they also had 13 shots on target, which is as many shots on target as England have had since the tournament began.
Boom.
Things I love to see as
the
a data analyst.
The bar's so very high on that particular stat. You mentioned... Sorry, Mike, you were going to say something about Spain, I think.
Well, I was just going to say how good they were in terms of moving the ball about from against a stubborn, compact block. And obviously England were facing that for long periods in the game in the afternoon, and they were just so stodgy and laboured in doing it. But Spain, the way that they zip it from side to side, that's how you try and move a block around, because Georgia were in a 5-3 3-2. So really, really contained, tried to sort of double up in wide areas against such strong wingers in Spain. But the fact that they would move it 1 and 2 touches, they would try and disrupt the block, which I think is the way to get past it, as I said, deep block. So they did it really well. I think that, again, as a data analyst, I would never encourage too many shots from outside the box, thinking about expected goals. I know it's been a theme of the tournament so far.
Dreadful
shots
tournament
from
for data analysts so far.
Yeah, flagrant disregard for expected goals across the whole tournament. But against a deep block, when there's so many bodies packed into a tight area, I do think it's actually quite a good idea, because you'll maybe get a nick off it and it'll maybe go through some legs, or maybe go out for a corner, or in the case of Rodri, it'll go into the bottom corner. So I think it was the only way that Spain were really going to try and actually score against Georgia, was to get the ball into wide areas and cross, which they did to great effect and frequently, or maybe shoot from distance.
They look far and away the best team at the Euros. No, Spain, the team perhaps you'd put closest to
just
them?
above England, I think. It's close, just above England. But I think
and Germany, who they're going to be facing next, which is going to be some matchup, no, in the quarterfinals.
it's a shame it's not a semi-final or even the final. I mean, I think since the start of the tournament, Spain and Germany have been probably head and shoulders above every other team. We've seen impressive performances by certain teams. I mean, Portugal, the first couple of group games, Switzerland against Italy. But yeah, I mean, Spain have been impressive every time you watch them. Germany, apart from that slightly unconvincing final group game against Switzerland, similarly impressive. I think it's a shame they're meeting as early as they are. I mean, it'll be a fantastic game, but it's a shame it's not happening a bit later in the tournament.
Well, the Austria-Switzerland final will be every bit as good.
Well, yes.
Yeah. You mentioned how great Georgia have been and how much we'll miss them. And the Athletic actually ranked, after the group stage came to a conclusion, the best games of the group stage. I believe I'm right in saying that 2 of the top 3 were Georgia matches.
Yeah, I may be giving the game away a little bit, but the top one was the Turkey-Georgia game, which you think, it was quite early on within the tournament, and it was comfortably at the time the best game. You think, okay, well, maybe it would have been topped in that in the time since, but it's still the chaos of it, the unbelievable goals still ranks as the
What was
best
the other
game.
Georgia game in there? Was it the Portugal win?
I can check.
I think it must have been, yeah.
Must have been the Portugal win.
Yeah.
While you're doing that, the bottom 2 of the best games of the group stage, can you guess which team was in both of those?
Do they involve crowd pleasers England by any chance?
England-Slovenia was the worst game of the tournament, according to the Athletic, and England-Serbia was just behind it in penultimate spot. Still, they're in the quarterfinals. Have some of that, Athletic.
Exactly. Yeah. No, the other game was the Georgia-Portugal
There
game.
you go. All right, well done, Georgia. They were fantastic. Well done, Spain. You're in the quarterfinals. And on Monday, we'll get another 2 teams making their way through to the last 8. Which teams and what are their chances? We'll be talking about that next. Shall I do that line now, Charlie, before I forget? So what was the line? It was we were coming off the Bellingham equaliser. There you go. That was the moment that England's Euro campaign turned around. Slovakia had taken the lead. They had almost added a second. Sorry about that. There you go. Was that the moment that England's Euro campaign turned around? Slovakia had taken the lead in this game. They'd nearly added a second early in the second half. England didn't get a shot on target until the 95th minute, and then with seconds to go, Bellingham with that kick from a Hollywood script. No sooner had extra time started than Harry Kane made it 2-1, and England make their way into the quarterfinals. Look out, here comes from Gelsenkirchen, Daniel Story. All right. Sorry about that. Right, where do we get to? Oh, yeah, Monday's games. All right, I can delete all of that. Sorry about this. You're probably seeing an advert if I know YouTube. And we're back. Okay. Listener, if you would like to experience Totally Football chat in the flesh, tickets are on sale for the next Totally Football show live. I'm going to be there. Duncan Alexander, also Julian Laurence and A.N. Other at the Leicester Square Theatre on the 8th of October. If you fancy a bit of that, go to leicestersquaretheatre.com to purchase any number of seats. Excellent. Good. Now, Monday, we got two more exciting matches. 2 games, indeed, from the tough side of the tracks at this Euros. We've got Portugal against Slovenia. That'll be at 8 o'clock in Frankfurt. Whoever wins in that game will be taking on whoever comes out of the France-Belgium clash, which will be kicking off in Dusseldorf at 5 o'clock UK time. France, I don't think it's any secret, are the favourites in this game. But could Belgium come to life just in time to stuff up their neighbours? Let's hear from top Belgian Christophe Terreur. France on Monday, Christophe. Last time we saw Belgium, they were basically being scared off the pitch by their own fans, having played for a 0-0 draw, which ensured they would be playing France in the last 16.
Yes, and that were things that we even didn't expect, and it's been the main talking point for the last 4 days in Belgium, I think. We spoke with some players yesterday, even with Kevin De Bruyne, the man who took the decision to walk away from the fans, and he basically repeated that he would do it again. He said that he's not afraid of boos and that he could understand the fans and booing, but for him it was more about the gestures that were done in the stands. I don't know what fans did, probably some fingers, some fists, stuff like that. So he was annoyed by that, and he said that if somebody makes those gestures on the street, I would react to, but it's all forgotten, he says. Now for France, we have to be all together again, and the fans put out a statement to that. It's tous ensemble, as they say in French, and as the fans sing in the stadium too. So they will try to go for it.
Okay. Is France a special game for Belgium, like Brazil, Argentina, or England, Scotland, or what are the other great neighbouring rivalries?
Well, for the Walloon part, the French part of the country, it is, because they're looking towards France as their neighbour. They're very friendly with them. But the Flemish part looks more to Holland. Holland is our main rival for the Flemish people. So it's not the big rivalry, but in the last few years, a lot has happened between France and Belgium, of course. The French are basically looking down at us in a way like, haha, those silly Belgians have lost from us in the World Cup, have lost to us in the semi-finals of the Nations League. So we feel a bit the arrogance from France towards us. That makes the game special for Belgium. That we want our team to prove that we can beat those people looking down at us. Maybe a better team, like playing against a stronger team, would suit Belgium better. We have with Toko, we have strong weapons for the counter attack. But as we all know, France are not always the team that plays the most open football either. So will make it as difficult, and they might even give us the ball, and then we might struggle. So we think we are firm underdogs, to be fair. France are the favourites, but anyway, players believe that they can beat them. They always believe they can beat teams. So let's see.
Let's see. Christophe, beyond the fact that Romelu Lukaku hasn't scored yet, which has been an obvious talking point, what has been the other thing that has seen this Belgian team fail to function so far?
Well, in Belgium, people have been pointing at the manager a bit, Domenico Tedesco. People don't really know him yet, but we've had 3 different lineups, and we've basically been too cautious, we think. We have lots of talent, we can be more expensive, but we haven't shown that yet. So that's been the main talking point, apart from Lukaku missing huge chances. And of course, VAR has also been a discussion point, but maybe we expect a bit too much after our glory years for 10 years now. We expect too much of the team. Maybe it's also that. So, but basically, we used to be a team that was very cautious, and years ago when I was a young kid, Belgium were pretty cautious and strong in defense. And since we've been beating all those teams in qualifications, doing well at World Cups and Euros, now everybody expects that we bring the same brand of football again. Well, that's maybe not possible with less talent in the team.
Christophe Terreur in place in Dusseldorf. Tom, reports coming in there of French arrogance. What do you make of that?
What? The French? Surely not. renowned for their humility.
They have rather had Belgium's number of late, as Christoph was referencing there. But they are a side that's got one or two problems of their own and famously failed to top their group at a major tournament for the first time since, 2012?
Yes, yeah, France very underwhelming in the group phase. 1-0 win against Austria, thanks to an own goal. Very forgettable 0-0 draw against the Netherlands, and then another very forgettable 1-1 draw against Poland. And Didier Deschamps has been kind of making little alterations between matches, and the suggestion is for this game against Belgium, he's going to try something else that he hasn't tried before. He's going to go for a 4-4-2 with a midfield diamond, which will have the merits of putting all of his starting players in their preferred positions, more or less, but which has the disadvantage of having never been tried before with this group of players. So basically, we're going to have a midfield three of Aurélien Tchouameni as the number 6, with N'Golo Kanté and Adrien Rabiot either side, which has kind of been Deschamps' big discovery of this tournament. And he loves a very muscular midfield, and so he has everything that you could possibly want with those three. Antoine Griezmann in the number 10 role, and then Kylian Mbappe and Marcus Thuram up front as a front two. That works on paper because you've got that very hard-working midfield three, bossing the middle of the pitch and helping to deprive Kevin De Bruyne and co of space. You've got Griezmann in his preferred role, as the sort of creator-in-chief, and it enables Mbappe and Thuram to play up front. Both players prefer playing with a strike partner. Thuram has spent the season playing up front alongside Lautaro Martinez for Inter. Mbappe much prefers having someone up alongside him, and if he's got Thuram there to do the dog work, it means that he can drift over to the left-hand side where he, does all his best work. So theoretically, it makes loads of sense. The only concern from a French perspective is that this is something completely new, and Deschamps, being the arch pragmatist, he's been known to sort of, change things during tournaments, but there have been examples in the past of him trying an untested formula in a major tournament and it falling flat. The most recent example being at this stage of the Euro in 2021, when he went with a back three against Switzerland in the last 16, and France ended up going out on penalties. So some potentially unhelpful historic echoes there.
Could it happen? Do you think this Belgian team have a good game in them, Mark?
Well, it's interesting that they didn't do well in the group phase, but they were the favourites to top the group and to win each game. That you wonder whether, kind of what Christoph said, that if they are maybe slightly less expected to win, then could they be a bit more counter-attacking? And with the strength of Kevin De Bruyne and Romelu Lukaku and Jeremy Doku, then they might actually have more joy than taking the game to the opposition, who will bunker in and they've got to try and find gaps. So maybe there's something in that. I think that in international football and knockout football in general, it can, as we found out today, it can come down to moments. You don't necessarily have to play well to still progress to the next round of the tournament. So there's maybe that. I think to the France idea of basically taking Dembele out, I think that France will lack a lot of width on that side. Jules Koundé is not a player who likes to really bomb on in the same way as Theo Hernandez on the left. So I think there'll be a lot of attack going down France's left, which Belgium can prepare for. So there's maybe something to be said there. And I think that sometimes the best way to play against France when Mbappe is drifting over to that side is to almost pin France back by actually pushing a player higher, whether that's your attacker or, in the case of maybe Timothy Castagna, sort of keeping him higher and thinking, okay, you got to worry about us as much as we're worrying about you. So knowing full well that they will undoubtedly attack, sort of channel their attack more towards the left-hand side, France, maybe Belgium might have something up their sleeve.
Okay, how much of a factor do you think will Mbappe's mask be?
Well, he spoke about it today in his pre-match press conference. He was asked, how he'd found it, and he said that it was une horreur absolue. So it was basically an absolute horror. He really hates it. It's been really bothering him. He's worn multiple masks keeps changing them because they're not comfortable, because they're obscuring his vision. Nevertheless, he accepts that he has to wear it. And we saw in that game against Poland, although he only scored from the penalty spot, he did get in a lot of good positions. And France did manage to get the ball to him in good positions. I think he'll probably be excited about the prospect of having a strike partner alongside him, which hasn't really happened at all with France. I mean, for a little while when Karim Benzema came back into the fold. So yeah, he hates the mask. It causes the sweat to run into his eyes, it affects his vision, etc., etc. And he did also get a whack on the mask by Robert Lewandowski towards the end of that Poland game. And he was asked about that as well today. And he said, well, yeah, I probably shouldn't have sworn at him as I did. I need to remember that there are little children watching. I just need to swallow this annoyance I feel about wearing the mask because I have no choice.
Excuse my French.
Quite literally, excuse my French, yeah.
Well, Mbappe had 6 shots in the Poland game, and I think it was said, in the days after, I don't know whether you guys felt that he was taking too many shots and he was getting in the way of other people, and it was almost like children's football where it's just like, get it to your best player, and I think that actually was counterproductive. So I don't know whether it'll be more of the same. We know what Kylian Mbappe offers, but I think sometimes he maybe has to come out of the action a little bit to get on the end of maybe a cross or a cutback. I know France are very strong in that regard at getting the ball to the byline, cutting it back. Hold your position. Don't feel like you have to be everywhere at any one time, and especially if you're maybe not on absolute top form because of a mask.
Yeah, I mean, absolute horror.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, France-Belgium, that is the early game on Monday, and whoever emerges from that, as mentioned, will take on the winners of Portugal-Slovenia, which is in Frankfurt at 8 o'clock. So far in the knockout rounds, we've had 2 underdogs having a go without succeeding. Could this be the match could this be the one that sticks, essentially? Slovenia, could they do Portugal? I offer you 2 facts. 1, Portugal's most recent game saw them defeated 2-0 by Georgia. 2, these 2 teams met in a friendly in March of this year. The scoreline was 2-0 to Slovenia. Scratch his chin, etc., and so on.
Yeah, I think with the Georgia example, I think obviously we know that Portugal heavily rotated, so it's hard to read too much into it in terms of Portugal's performance in the final group game. And Slovenia, I mean, I know that they troubled England in the final group game, so I don't want to maybe be too critical of them, but they don't offer too much in terms of going forward.
They've had 4 draws in a row now.
Yeah, they play quite stubborn 4-4-2 in and out of possession. They're very long ball in what they do offer. But then you think about Portugal struggled for long periods against Czech Republic in the first game when they did play the team that we're more likely to see in the next game, when Czech Republic went more to a back 6 at times. But yeah, just on the long ball thing as well, is that Slovenia have played 16% of their total passes have been long balls, and only Romania in the group stage played a higher share of long balls. So you know what you're going to kind of get with Slovenia, but they don't necessarily have that matched with a real attacking threat and too much in the way of counterattacks, like a Georgia, where you actually think, okay, they're actually going to do something here. So my prediction would be that Portugal will safely sail through this round.
Okay. Can you guess, I wonder, who is the player who's had the most shots at Euro 2024 without scoring a goal so far?
Is it going to go slightly left field with this one? Is it Cristiano Ronaldo by any chance?
That's spooky. It is Cristiano Ronaldo. Actually, he's had 12 shots so far, and by the sound of it, fans of seeing Ronaldo pouting, looking imploringly at the heavens, throwing his hands up in the air, could well be in for 90 minutes or more of pure treat.
Yeah, it's not like him to do all of those things and act in a somewhat childish way.
I say that with affection because I think he's obviously a tremendous player, but just a magnificent example of a footballer who cares deeply and utterly. And
he was also, I think, Ronaldo, he was the first player I can remember who you would catch looking up at an image of himself on the big screen. Like when he was lining up a free kick, he'd have a little chat. Oh yeah, I'm on the big screen. Kind of need to get my free kick face on. And now you see it more frequently. I noticed Jude Bellingham did it today. That bit after he sort of G'd up the fans in the. He had a quick look. Oh yeah, Cameron's got that. Just checking, just making sure. Ronaldo, another stat for you. He's gone 7 major tournament matches without scoring a goal, which is quite a drought for a player of his calibre.
Indeed.
So,
Well, yeah, it could be a rough afternoon, stroke evening, now that I see that the kickoff is actually 8 o'clock. Could be a rough evening for Slovenia, or maybe not.
I mean, and the thing is, I mean, you know, Slovenia are sort of pleasingly up and at 'em in the sense that they've got a kind of, you know, quite old-fashioned 4-4-2 tactical setup, you know, with 2 proper strikers in Šeško and Šporar, and you know, we've seen evidence of that causing team problems. I mean, they haven't yet won a game, but they've been a decent value for all the points they've picked up. I mean, you know, they did well to come from behind, get a draw against Denmark. They were 1-0 up against Serbia until 95th minute, and,
right.
You know, very close to getting a win there. So yeah, I mean, as Mark says, Portugal with their strongest 11 out. You know, will be very strong favourites.
Jan Oblak. Maybe he'll be decisive. Here's a stat from producer Charlie. This will be Slovenia's 7th game at the European Championships. How many have they won of the previous 6?
I'm guessing it's a low number.
It's the lowest number of all. It's 0. They've never won a game at the European Championships, and they're in the last 16.
Wow.
Kind of want them to carry on just doing it.
Yeah. I think it could be. Well, we'll see what happens. 8 o'clock anyway. That game will be kicking off in Frankfurt. As usual, we'll be here Monday night, straight after the final whistle, there or thereabouts, with our thoughts on all of that and a quick look ahead to Tuesday, which will be the last set of last 16 matches. Crikey. For now, though, I think that pretty much wraps it up. So many, many thanks to Tom and to Mark and to Daniel and Christoph for joining us earlier on. Liam and producer Charlie in the booth. And, of course, you at home. Do join us in about 24 hours' time. For now, from all of us here, it's goodbye.